gives, I guess it gives more, maybe younger players more, I don't know if hope's the right word, but it gives them a bit more optimism when you see a guy clearly like grind his way into the top 10 with no apparent like signature shot.
You don't see a lot with players of other nationalities. Maybe that's the way these players are taught. Maybe that's the attitude of tennis within France, especially when they're growing up and whatnot. But you know, these trick shots, the entertainment value, it's something we're going to miss quite sorely. It is very nice to see, obviously, youngsters rising and seeing how that journey progresses, because there are a lot of people who dream of reaching the top, and it's definitely nice to see that journey as it unfolds, especially firsthand.
Welcome back to the Getting a Grip Tennis podcast. I am indeed wearing grey again, but Merlin's looking a little bit more red today after a bit of coaching up in Bovey. How are we doing?
Yeah, not too bad, thanks. I mean, as you say, my face is probably about as red as my jumper right now. That's the nature of an 8 or 9 hour tennis coaching day. But apart from that, that's it's a prime Sunday. Prime Sunday.
Yeah, I've been sitting on my arse all day, so I can't really say much. But anyway, let's get into some tennis news. So the main things we've got this week are Norrie breaking into the top 10 for the first time. We've also got Tsonga retiring after the French Open, which is a little bit sad. We'll be talking about our memories of him, some of the historical matches that he's been involved in, and then we'll hopefully touch a little bit on what's going on in the junior scene, at least locally in Devon. But yes, first off, here in Britain, we've got Norrie. Obviously, the last year or two, he's kind of really risen up the rankings. He's now made the top 10 in the world rankings. I don't think he's kind of flown under the radar a little bit compared to, like Dan Evans has obviously been in the news for various reasons, and there's always a lot of attention on him, and Andy Murray, of course, Merlin's favourite, and his kind of battles against injury. But yeah, Norrie sort of snuck under the radar a bit. But yeah, he's cracked the top 10. How long we see him staying there for, I guess, is a topic for discussion. But would you say you're surprised that he has made it this far, given maybe his perceived talent compared to other players, or is this kind of something that you've expected for a while now?
Oh, I've definitely been expecting it over the past year. You'll see, last year he had a really incredible run, putting together like lots of good results. His Indian Wells win, for example, last year. I think he's a player that I've been watching for quite a while now, and a player that I'm excited to say that I've been watching, because he's not, as you were saying, as you alluded to, like, he's not a talent, as it were. Obviously, he's got some knack to tennis, otherwise he wouldn't be top 10 in the world. But he's clearly a hard worker. He doesn't have these incredible touches that, say, like Kyrgios has, or that we see from some of our big four and whatnot. But and this is where I'm going to bring it back to my man Andy. It's kind of the case of these British players being hard workers, taking it to a grinding area, that sort of baseline game. Just very excited. I quite like Norrie's game. I'm not a huge fan of his backhand, but it's effective. Yeah. It's not pretty, but it's effective. So, that's what you got to go with.
A bit of a shovel, isn't it? I don't really know how to describe it. I mean, it's consistent enough, so can't really knock it too much. I think it's good, though. It gives more, maybe younger players more, I don't know if hope's the right word, but it gives them a bit more optimism when you see a guy clearly like grind his way into the top 10 with no apparent like signature shot or whatever. You talk about like Nadal with his forehand, or some of these big guys with their serves, or Federer with his forehand. You tend to kind of almost romanticize it a little bit when you look at a lot of these players and certain strokes they have. You're like, oh yeah, there's no way like I could replicate that, or it's just like you said, some of it is genetic, but when you see a guy like Norrie, there's nothing that particularly stands out, and that's not necessarily a criticism. It's more of a reason for hope, or an actual compliment, really. given that.
I think it's a mark of the times. If I'm going to say that, like we're very much in a period of tennis history where someone with a weapon isn't necessarily going to be the winner. The people that have stayed at the top and won at the top for the longest, Djokovic being a key example, they've been good at everything. And you have to be an all-rounder these days. It would be, I think, a bit unfair to say that Norrie is a jack of all trades, master of none. But like I say, he's got a consistent level across the whole of his game. Makes him harder to target, but at the same time, it makes him slightly more prone to shows of form. So if someone's on top form at a certain time, as we know a couple of players are at the moment, then he might fall prey to that because he doesn't quite have a weapon to then battle against that sort of form. So, it's consistent for the tour, but I don't necessarily think we'll see him winning anything big anytime soon.
Yeah, I mean, consistency is definitely the word you would associate with him. And you're right, there's no particular area to target. A lot of these players who have these signature shots or whether that you can still get at them in other ways, whereas with his game it's just more kind of well-rounded. He just, to me, when I watch him, he knows where to put the ball. He just makes the right decision.
He's a placer, yeah.
Yeah, and he just puts it where the opponent doesn't want it, basically, and then he would wear them down mentally until they crack, basically. So yeah, I think he was still that he has won fairly big events, but
for big events, yeah.
If he comes up against someone in red hot form, then he then doesn't have that standout kind of weapon to maybe counteract that. So yeah, but I don't see him going anywhere anytime soon. To be honest, just continue the way he's going. He'll hang around the top 20, I think, for a fairly long time. So yeah. Well done to him and his team. So obviously we've had the recent announcement that Tsonga will be hanging up his tennis shoes after the French Open. Very, very sad for us. Anyone who's watched tennis for at least 5-10 years will probably have some good memories of Tsonga. I think for me particularly, not even in terms of tournaments that he's won, but I remember that Wimbledon quarterfinal that he played against Federer. I think it was 2011 or something, and Federer was 2 sets to love up, and everyone just thought it was a formality, and he just kept going, kept believing, and managed to come back from 2 sets down to knock Federer out at Wimbledon, which not many players can say. And obviously he did it with his usual effervescence and lovely kind of trick shots that he's got, and just crazy athleticism. Yeah, what are your memories of Tsonga?
He's just another example of French artistry, and this is what I love about watching most French tennis players. You got the likes of Richard Gasquet and Gael Monfils. These players bring a certain beauty to the game. But you know what I mean? They do. They bring a certain beauty to the game, which you don't see a lot with players of other nationalities. Maybe that's the way these players are taught. Maybe that's the attitude of tennis within France, especially when they're growing up and whatnot. But these trick shots, the entertainment value, it's something we're going to miss quite sorely. And one of the big things he used to do is he had a celebration at the end of a match. You knew what you were going to get. If Tsonga won a match, he'd do his usual celebration, pumping his fists as he spins around. Like I say, it really helps you to fall in love with a character when you have some of these sorts of, defining characteristics, effectively.
Yeah, just a bit of personality, really.
Yeah, exactly.
I suppose, having talked about Cameron Norrie and now talking about Tsonga, it's Norrie's he's obviously worked incredibly hard, but he hasn't necessarily got the big personality or whatever that some players have. And there's tennis caters to all different characters, but it's always nice to have some players that really kind of show their emotions in a good way on the court, and sometimes in a bad way, but you're right. And the artistry as well, like you said, the artistry is there is room for it even in this kind of highly technical analytical age that we live in. But it's always nice to see a little bit of artistry and kind of creativity almost on the court.
Yeah, no, I think you're completely right. And to be honest, my reaction to Tsonga, leaving the tour, it feels a little bit subdued because it's not like he's been playing at the top level the last couple of years necessarily. Like he's been around, he's been playing in certain tournaments and whatnot, but like we haven't seen much of him. And the same was the case with Burdick before he left the game. And these are all these players that used to be the top 20, top 30. They'd float around whilst the big four were just scalping tournaments and whatnot. So yeah, like I say, it's very, very sad. But it's not exactly a surprise.
No, hopefully he can, win at least one match for the home crowd when the French Open starts. But yeah,
that would be nice.
I've just checked. I mean, he's 36. I suppose Nadal et al. Are still, playing at an incredible level at that age. But still 36 is a very impressive career, long stint. So
yeah, for sure.
And as you said, he's kind of yes. There's not been a lot kind of news around him or much coverage around him for a while. I can't really recall any massive deep runs that he's made recently. There'll probably be something that I've forgotten, but there's nothing that really jumps out. So yeah, I just hope he can give the crowd some last bit of fun. Maybe one match, first round victory.
Parting gift.
Yeah, a bit of effervescence, a bit of personality again would be nice. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe it just makes me feel old because I'm players that you grow up watching are just starting to retire, and it's just oh god.
Yeah, he was always a big name for the big matches. You knew you were going to get a good show if any of the big four were coming up against him or any of the top 10. It was one of the ones to watch. So yeah, it'd definitely be missed for that pizzazz.
Okay, so something slightly different this week. Aside from the regular mainstream kind of news, we're going to talk a little bit about what's going on in junior circles, at least locally, in the kind of Devon-ish area. So Merlin's got some updates from juniors that are playing in Bovey at the moment. How have the guys been getting on?
Yeah, no, it's an interesting time. I think it's nice to talk about something other than mainstream and professional tennis because a lot of people who like to listen to these sorts of podcasts and who like to play tennis, they're not playing at the top of the sport or anything like that, but they are enjoying tennis. But it is very nice to see, obviously, youngsters rising and seeing how that journey progresses because there are a lot of people who dream of reaching the top, and it's definitely nice to see that journey as it unfolds, especially firsthand. So yeah, our club, Bovey Tracy, sort of set at the edge of Dartmoor. This is down in Devon, in England, but we've got a head coach who pushes forwards on a lot of performance related areas. One of the things that he recently won was Southwest Performance Coach of the Year by the LTA, and he was shortlisted for the National Performance Coach of the Year. So, like I say, he's done an incredible job bringing a lot of these juniors on. One of those juniors, I won't say any names for now, but one of these juniors who plays basically in the under-14 circuit. He's reached top 30 in the country for the under-14 circuit as well. So this is the whole of England. But he's starting to play in some European qualifiers, so he's got one of those coming up very, very soon. And starting to play a lot of national tournaments. And there's a lot of success here, and it does come down to the fact that you have to make deep runs in tournaments and you have to pick up points in order to solidify those rankings. And one of the harshest things about tennis, especially at this level, where you're starting to build something that could turn into a professional career, is very much the fact that it's expensive. So, it's an area worth discussing because the price of tennis is very, very, very costly, and especially for people who, at a younger age, their parents might not necessarily have all the answers at each moment. So, like I said, the LTA does some funding, but I would call that inadequate. But yeah, like I say, it's all about trying to support that journey. So one of the things that our club do is we have a pot of money which we set aside for promising young juniors. This is a very recent development, but very important to try and progress these journeys on. And this is something that grassroots tennis should be doing a lot more of all across the country, all across the world.
Yeah, I think I spoke to the guy I was getting coached by, this Italian guy, in one of our sessions, and he was talking about how they've raised the prize money in a lot of the challenges and stuff, and they're seeing even just from that, like a lot more players coming through now. The likes of like Sinner, etc., that have
Yeah.
benefited from that. And yeah, it would be nice to see more funding, at least going towards covering, I don't know, travel costs or accommodation costs, just things like that that would make a massive difference and make it more accessible to just a wider range of people from different backgrounds, I think.
Well, this is exactly it. Representation is still very poorly sculpted, especially in England and whatnot. So, it's a really important issue to raise. And in order to do that, you do have to funnel the money in. Where does that money come from? Good question. I would argue the LTA, they don't do a very good job at funneling it down into grassroots tennis, despite they might argue that they are. I don't really know how this goes in other countries, but as you say, especially in Italy, for example, if you increase the prize money, if you've got kids that are winning, kids that are showing their talent at these lower level tournaments, are starting to build on professional careers, then obviously it's going to be more financially viable for them. But yeah, like I say, that funding needs to be indiscriminate to begin with.
Yeah, I think that's something we can talk about more as we bring this up in like future episodes.
Yeah, I'm hoping that this will be a fairly regular section to talk about because as we all live and breathe grassroots tennis, we won't just talk about young promising juniors, but I think it's important to talk about just helpful little things that will get us enjoying the game and things that we can all do to really improve our game.
Okay, it's round, I think, 6 of tennis trivia this week. So it's my turn to answer the questions, and Merlin's turn to grill me on my lack of tennis knowledge.
Well, we had a record win last week, didn't we, Ben? I think I remember a record win being recorded. Is that right?
I may have forgotten to mention that, but yeah, Merlin did.
Yeah, well, I'm going to mention it, aren't I? Yeah, solid 4 out of 5. I think you've really got your money cut out for you. You got to try and raise the bar a little bit, but hopefully it's the first of some more consistent results across the board.
All right.
But anyway, so the questions today are a little different. So we're going to talk about some of the quirks that players have, but also, as we were talking in the grassroots section just before, talking about representation, it's important to make sure that we talk about players all the way across the board, not just our favourites. I can't just talk about Andy Murray all day long, as much as I'd love to.
And I can't talk about Federer, sadly.
No,
well, I won't be able to anyway soon, so...
So I'm going to start you off with a nice easy one, or at least a nice easy one in terms of it's a simple question, not much to think about. Who was the first Afro-American Wimbledon winner, Grand Slam Wimbledon winner, on the female side? And your options include these 4. Althea Gibson, Serena Williams, Venus Williams, and Coco Gauff.
I think it's the first option, Althea Gibson. I seem to recall when I was doing my research last week, seeing that name come up. So I'm going to go with that one.
You're going to go with A, Althea Gibson?
I am.
You are correct. Well done. So that's 1 out of 1 so far. Yes, Althea Gibson was the first Afro-American winner of the female female side of the Grand Slam. I'm not entirely sure of the history when it comes to men's tennis, when it comes to Afro-American wins, but that's something that will hopefully change over the next 50 years in the Open era, where we start to see more representation. But like I say, that's something that we can all go away and have a look.
1956, I think. It's shoot that.
Yeah, there you go. Oh, there you go. You've got good knowledge there.
No, I just Googled it.
I see. Okay. Anyway, so what we'll do is we'll stay on the similar topic with the women's side of tennis, but we're actually going to take a little segue from tennis. So this is about a tennis player, but her, let's say, activities outside of tennis. Which Russian player won her 3rd straight Porsche Grand Prix in 2014? Your 4 options include Svetlana Kuznetsova, Maria Sharapova, Elena Vesnina, and Vera Zvonareva.
Porsche Grand Prix. Wait, so this person is involved.
This person won their 3rd straight Porsche Grand Prix.
But what actually is that? Is it just like a rally car race or something?
Yeah, effectively.
Can you list the names again? I feel like
So your options are Svetlana Kuznetsova, Maria Sharapova, Elena Vesnina, and Vera Zvonareva. I really hope I've said these right. I'd like to think I have. Yeah, it sounds okay.
I'm thinking either the first or the fourth one, but I mean, I really don't have much of a clue. I'm gonna go with. I'll go with Kuznetsova because I don't know. She seems like that kind of character, but I really have nothing to go off.
Get a grip. The answer is Maria Sharapova. So as well as being a star tennis player, your shock is registered. As well as being a star tennis player, she is also a star racer. The interesting thing is this joins a host of different players from all sports who tend to find a talent in other sports fairly easily. There is a good argument that suggests, and you'll probably know this from the sports science world, that once you become quite proficient in one sport, you find it very easy to pick up other sports because movement and processing is all very similar. So they find the same with footballers who take up tennis, or tennis players who decide to play golf, or, for example, footballers who take up golf in the off-season when they're injured. Gareth Bale is a good example. When Real Madrid decided not to play him, he almost became a pro golfer.
I think he's basically a full-time golfer and a part-time footballer these days.
Exactly. So there's all these possibilities. You've got Ash Barty as well, who's recently retired from tennis, and clearly she's going to make some success out of her cricket.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a very interesting world, and I think you're going to see a lot more of this, a lot more of cross-sport participation from these talented individuals, which will be very interesting, especially as people's careers are being elongated. We all know that people don't like to stick at the same career their entire lifetime.
I still think that's a bit of a shafty question, that, because it's not that I have wide-ranging tennis knowledge, but it's not exactly a tennis specific question.
It's about a tennis player, so
that's a little bit naughty, but
I think it's very interesting.
Cool. That's
mostly for the topic.
Answer, yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, mostly for the topic of obviously this multi-sported talent that occurs. Anyway, we're now going to move on to a slightly different question. We're going to go towards the nickname of a particular player. So, which tennis player was nicknamed the Rocket? And your four options here include Boris Becker, Tim Henman, Andy Roddick, or Rod Laver.
Yeah, I got this one in the bag. I didn't even need the multiple choice answers. I actually know this one. I'm gonna go with Rod the Rocket Laver.
There you go. Well done. Yes, of course you've got this right. I think it's very important to acknowledge it. Yeah, that probably might have been an easy question. Something I thought I'd throw in there for you because of the question prior to this. But yes, Rod Laver, back in his heyday, was known as the Rocket. Ben, do you know why he was named the Rocket?
I don't. I can speculate that maybe it's because either he was really fast or he had like a big forehand or something. But what is it?
A little bit of a combination of both, but yes, it was largely due to his speed, at least from what I've read. Haven't watched a huge degree of his tennis because obviously way before my time.
Yeah.
But no, I think very interesting. And something I'd like to see a little bit more of in tennis again. You know, nicknames are not something that we come across very often.
Yeah, it seems to be like it's a thing in like boxing and the fighting world because it's all about kind of presenting this personality or whatever. But yeah, you don't see it very often in tennis.
But tennis is a very singular battle. People, pitting themselves against each other. So, very much like boxing. I think this should very much become part of it again. Anyway, we're now going to move on. We're going to slide back into some women's tennis knowledge, and hopefully you'll have, hopefully you enjoy this part of history. But it's a nice, short, brief one. What year were the ladies' singles events first introduced at Wimbledon? Your options include 1875, 1884, 1887, and 1901.
So this is ladies singles. Did you say at Wimbledon or?
At Wimbledon, yeah.
So I seem to recall from my research last week that Wimbledon first started in 1877. So what were the options again?
1875, 84, 87, and 1901.
See, the cynic in me, because of the stuff about prize money last week, would think maybe the people running Wimbledon were not too fond of female, I don't know, participation. So that makes me think,
just progressive change.
Yeah, or just being up to date with the times. So that makes me kind of lean towards a later time. I'm gonna go with either 87 or 01. I'll go with 1901.
Get a grip. The right answer was 1884. So it was actually fairly soon after the men's events even started, obviously being in the late 70s, 1870s I should say. But yes, good example of where the question could have easily been another answer, as you rightly say. Tennis is one of those sports that has been accused of not exactly being the most progressive, especially in recent times. But no, it turns out that Wimbledon did introduce the women's singles title quite early on.
Well, that's good to know, but that also means I can't win this week.
It also means you can't win. So I'm very happy about that. Which brings me to our final question for a little bit of fun. Some players are a little bit quirky, and some players do odd things on court in order to ensure they win. Rafael Nadal is very known for this. The direction he points the label on his bottle must line up with the direction he is serving, and he also organises his things meticulously, especially all of his drinks and whatnot.
And you'll also notice on the lines as well.
Walks on the lines, clears the lines on the clay court. But like I say, when you're a top tennis player, these superstitions don't just become superstitions anymore. They become the reason you're winning. And if you change anything, then potentially you might not win. So obviously you're not going to change something that's working, are you? Even if it might not be a contributing factor. Interestingly, Andy Murray as well can't wear his wedding ring on his finger, so he wears his wedding ring tied to his shoelace, which also led to him recently having a very entertaining story where he lost his wedding ring in a hotel, and obviously they had to go and find it after he left the shoes underneath his car. I think this was over in America.
It was just to leave, like he was just trying to dry them out. I love that.
Just trying to dry them out. Yeah, when you've got a few pairs of tight trainers and you play elite tennis, you're going to have some sweaty shoes. You need to dry them out. Anyway, let's go to the question. What did Ivan Lendl keep in his pocket during tournaments? Your four options include a lucky penny, a ball, sawdust, or his hand. I thought you'd like that last option.
That I was not expecting that as the last option, to be honest. His hand.
He may have been a very casual player, who knows?
Yeah. What were the options again? Don't say the last one.
A lucky penny, a ball, sawdust, or his hand.
A ball would just be. This seems rather strange, unless it's like a really
ball would be reasonable, no?
Yeah, but is it a tennis ball? Or is it just some other like lucky little, I don't know, one of those little bouncy balls or something? Sawdust. That was a bit weird. I don't really know what function that would serve, or there wouldn't be any kind of sentimentality to that. I don't think. What was the first one? Was a penny, wasn't it? I feel like that would just. Sure, that would just fly out during a rally or something. I am actually torn between sawdust for some reason and a ball, because it could be like a small ball maybe. Well, I mean, I suppose it could be a tennis ball, but it seems a bit counterproductive, that, given that you won't be able to use it. I'll go with sawdust. I don't have a clue again. I mean, I'm not going to have a clue on mine. That's a very niche.
Is your final answer sawdust?
God, the way you've said it now, I'm not too keen on that answer. I'll go with it anyway. Go with your gut.
Congratulations, you've got the answer correct.
Oh wow!
Even Lendl did in fact keep sawdust in his pocket during tournaments. There's a lot of speculation as to why. Obviously, it's much like chalk for climbers. It might be one of these examples where obviously his hand might be getting sweaty. So he grabs some sawdust to put on the grip, and obviously that would ensure that obviously he maintains a drier grip. But, like I say, there are downsides to some of these things. Rafael Nadal takes a very long time when he starts a setup because of all of his routines of touching his face.
And other areas.
He's touching his face. And his ears, and his ears, that's right. And Ivan Lendl often got accused of needing to be cleaned up because the sawdust was all over the court. And obviously other players weren't necessarily a fan of that when they went to the other side.
Oh, interesting. So I've got, what did I get? 3 out of 5? That's respectable.
A respectable 3 out of 5, but not a winning 3 out of 5.
Yeah, thanks for reminding me. Oh, a 3 out of 5 is I think that's a good kind of minimum. Any 3 and above is respectable, yeah. But obviously it's not up to your standards. Obviously I'm going to have to make the questions more difficult next time, or just really left field like you've done for me.
I thought my questions were actually quite reasonable. They were just a bit more odd.
Yeah, maybe I'm just an idiot. I think that's what it is.
All right, yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for watching this week's episode of the Getting a Grip podcast. If you have liked it, then give it a follow if you're on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, and obviously if you're on YouTube, give it a like, share it around, and subscribe if you so wish to do so. And we'll see you in the next one.